Yo, what up? Welcome to another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. I'm Patrick, and I am joined by Aram in Toronto. What up, Aram?
Hello. I'm looking forward to this episode because it's Warriors Christmas, aka the NBA draft.
It's the NBA draft, and you last year in our very, very thorough, I feel like we did like 10 draft episodes on like different topics. But why do you love the draft, and why is it Warriors Christmas to you even now?
Okay, as maybe some of the listeners know, and also my wife tells me that I need to stop talking about, we are longtime Warriors fans. We remember the bad times. This was the only thing we had to look forward to. At the end of the season, the Warriors would end the regular season far out of playoff contention. The rest of the NBA would go on and have their fun in the playoffs. And then in the meantime, we'd, look through magazines or NBAdraft.net and look for mock drafts and whatnot. And then finally, the week after the finals, you'd have Warriors Christmas, where, just like Christmas when you were a kid, you had something you wanted really badly. And then if you were a Warriors fan back then, you remember that you usually do not get what you want. That's part of the Warriors fan experience from a certain vintage. I realize it's different for a lot of folks now, and that's cool too. There's certainly in the last couple of years, you kind of got a taste of that. I mean, those were high lottery picks, and the excitement and the potential of these players, James Wiseman, Kuminga, Moody, and for Patrick, Nico Mannion. You still on that island?
Not so much, because I know that he would have been not on the court during the finals.
Yeah. But as fans have probably seen in the last couple of years, that excitement of these high level players and what they might contribute to in future seasons. I will say that if you look back at this playoff run that ended in a championship, these dudes didn't get on the floor, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, Wiseman was hurt. Moody and Kuminga basically played mop-up minutes, especially in the games that ended up mattering. So, it's just also to give a little bit of perspective about Warriors Christmas is that these are things that have repercussions many seasons down the line. It's very rare for it to have immediate impact. So just something for people to think about. What's weird about this year is that, Warriors Christmas comes after whatever amazing celebration is way better than Christmas. So, which obviously, the NBA finals, winning the finals, being championship parade, all of that stuff. Warriors Christmas is a little bit of an afterthought. But hey, tradition is tradition, and Warriors Christmas is still happening this week, and I'm here for it.
So I gotta admit, it's crazy because last season I was all up on the draft, reading about Kuminga, Moody, Zaire Williams, James Bouknight, all these dudes, Scotty Barnes, reading all about them and looking at Tankathon just because we had that Minnesota pick. And I was just all about the draft. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're in the finals, and the draft is now. It's like next week. Yeah. Right? And so here we are. It's this week. So as our basically the draft preview, I have no idea what the Warriors are picking 28th, right?
Okay, so I will have to say that I also have not not really paid attention to this, and we can still carry the Christmas analogy on a little bit. We are definitely down to doing last minute shopping right now. We did not buy any gifts for anybody. Yeah, I have not done my normal extensive research on these players. Full transparency, I was focused on the playoffs, but I will say, instead of talking about specific players, I think it might be more appropriate to talk about different strategies in the draft, because I can't remember who it was that said, maybe it was like one of the beat writers, but saying that like when you pick this late in the draft, the variance of players and prospects that you have to see, that you have a potential to pick, like it can be all kinds of multiverses, right? Whereas the last, couple of years, you're talking in 2020, it's like, okay, we were looking at Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman, or LaMelo Ball, right? Like that was it. And maybe some people were saying Halliburton or Denny Avdia. So there's only a handful of people that you have to evaluate when you're picking that high. And likewise last year, like there was only so many. I mean, we probably researched more because they had 2 picks, but but in the end, these are all high level dudes that have a lot of information on it. But at this point, 28, you're talking about a wide variety of players. You're thinking about different positions. Or you're not thinking about positions, and so on and so forth. So before we get to the kind of like different strategies, it also should be noted though that this could go a lot of different ways. Let's remember that Jordan Poole was also, I believe, the 28th pick, and he was picked in that kind of like depression and the ashes of the dynasty, right? In 2019, he was the week after that finals ended, they picked this skinny dude who we thought was going to be Nick Young, and
everybody said that was too high for him.
Yeah, everybody thought that. And if you remember the press conference too, with I think it was him, Pascal, and who else was it?
Smiley.
Was it Smiley? Yeah. And then they would ask Bob Myers, like, how are these guys going to impact? And he was so like terse and like depressed, and he was like, I don't know. They're gonna have to work. They're just gonna have to work. Like I remember him saying, I don't know.
He says that every year.
Normally says that, but the like the despair that he said that, he was just like, he had other things going on. He was working on a D-Lo sign and trade. We didn't know it at the time, but but incredibly important to this year's run. But also like typically probably, maybe actually a pretty fast track that Poole went on to from, this is his 3rd year and being able to contribute at a high level to a championship level team, right? Yeah. That is relatively rare. Somebody like Desmond Bane, was a 2nd-year player this last year, picked in the 20s. So it can happen. But it also can happen that you get Jacob Evans, who was also a 28th pick. But a Nedovic, right, was also in that late round. Damian Jones, he's an okay rotation big now, but that was like, when was he picked? 6 years ago. But then also you think about 30th pick in, I think, 2015 or 2016, Kevon Looney. So these are valuable picks. So with that in mind, this idea that like there's this variance, but there is value, I have a couple of like ways to think about it. So, and I don't know what the Warriors are going to do. So I'll put it to you. Why don't you put your Bob Myers hat on for now, or your Joe Lacob, your Bob Myers, Joe Lacob split cap. How about that?
There you go. It's on.
Yeah,
it's on.
Okay. All right. So one would be keep the pick, draft, either for need, quote unquote, air quotes, or best player available. So draft, stash, and develop. Trade back. So you could trade, let's say, first round picks get a certain amount of guaranteed years and a certain amount of options after that guaranteed first amount of years. Lots of ink has been spilled about the Warriors having massive luxury tax. This will add to your luxury tax. So would you trade back? You could trade back into the beginning of the second round. Like the Raptors did something like that when they traded their first round pick for Thaddeus Young and got a pick in that was like 33 or something like that.
Mhm.
Second round picks don't have guaranteed contracts in that sense. You can give them guaranteed contracts, but they don't adhere to the same stacked salary. The commitment is lower. The tax bill would be lower. So you could trade back. You could trade out, right? You could trade for future assets. And maybe trading back, you would trade for future assets as well. So you kind of like kick that cost down the road. You could say like, we have enough young dudes. We don't need another guy, right? Let's focus on the guys we have in hand. Or you could trade for another player. Maybe you could trade that pick for a first round pick from last year who didn't fit with a team that he's on, but maybe you're like, you know what, we could do something with him, and you kind of just slot in that salary slot. So these are some options, and I'm curious to know what you would do. So would you keep the pick and develop? Would you trade back or trade out? And if you trade out, would you want a player or would you just want a future first round pick?
I would trade for a future first.
Okay, why?
To me, that's pretty easy because, I mean, you know how much I like who we have. I just don't think that adding another young guy, even if you stash him in the G League for a while in Santa Cruz, like, I don't think it's as valuable, especially because you're paying him. So I just don't see that as being like a necessity to have that guy and that salary and that luxury tax being used. And I think you could punt that somehow to the next year or a couple years down the road when you are looking to kind of replenish your stable of young dudes after those guys are a little bit older, like maybe when they're in 22, 23, you know? So, and then you get a new guy who could maybe give you something a little bit more. And maybe by then you'll have a clearer picture of where, honestly, like Trey, Clay, Steph are in a few years or in a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that makes the most sense to me. But just like kind of taking that gamble and then taking up the salary slot, and unless there's somebody that they really, really love, because even if they got like a big man, maybe as insurance for if Wiseman's knee doesn't heal the way it should and he can't play another season or something,
Mm-hmm.
have another big body. But outside of that, I think that's somebody you can get in free agency with a ring chaser.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think with that, if you were to choose that strategy, the idea is that, like, I mean, I think it makes sense in that, like, you have young dudes who are going to have minutes, but they're going to have to fight for those already. And then you would have this other pick that would take up a roster spot. Right. And you saw kind of a roster crunch not crunch, but like there were times in the season where you're like, oh, it'd be nice if you had a couple of extra dudes instead of like, first half of the year, Clay was hurt or Iguodala's taking over a roster spot. Wiseman's taking up a roster spot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, with the two ways, like there's enough flexibility to kind of like, shuttle guys in and out. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see the idea of like trading out for future assets, and that could be really helpful. I would say I feel like part of me feels like they're likely to pick the pick just because I think about like Lako's personality. It's like, I'm putting all this money into development. What are we have these development coaches for? And yeah, that's my,
is he from like a 1930s movie?
He loves this kind of stuff, right? And we love this stuff too. Yeah. So I don't foresee them doing the trade back into the second round. I don't see that. So I think they'll either trade out for that future asset or maybe another player, or they'll draft and they'll just like really try to develop the heck out of, somebody in the G League. And
to be honest, like I would take another year of Andre Iguodala at the minimum over whoever they take at the 28th pick, in general, if you put it that way, right? Like taking up a roster spot, like I'll give that to Andre over that guy right now.
But this is a draft preview, Patrick. This is no fun if you trade out. Come on.
This is making too much sense.
Throw the logic out the window. You got to swing for the fences.
All right,
I mean, no. Okay, well, we'll swing for the fences in a second. I will say, though, like just another point that just is sensible is that, like, man, you saw it last year. Well, you saw it in postseason. Rookies are not 16 game players, and rookies are barely even 82 game players, right? Like, there were times where Kuminga contributed, times where Moody contributed, but it's like, but they were not steady rotation players. And, you know, part of that is things that we discussed in a previous episode about like Kerr's rotations and like focuses on defense. Like, he don't trust those dudes, right? And the way they play defense in the playoffs sometimes, he's right not to trust them, right? Maybe other organizations have a different philosophy. Like, to see Zaire Williams out there on Memphis, like, that was cool, right? And you kind of want that as well, but that's just not how the Warriors seem to operate, right? So so I will say that, like, I think it is a sensible thing. If, well, I wouldn't be surprised if they do that, but I also would be a little bit surprised.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like, you look at the most recent draft, like the Kuminga draft, and it's like, what? How many players would have actually played in the finals for the Warriors? Scotty Barnes, Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, maybe, if they were
Herb Jones, probably, right? Like a taller GP2, right?
Yeah. Anyway, continue.
For the podcast fans who came here for picks speculation, now we're gonna do it. So okay. However many minutes we're in, but if you came here for sensible talk, you came to the right place. Okay, now some players that we can take some home run swings at. 28th pick. All right, sure, let's just say of course, best player available. So that could be a lot of different players. But that said, like, you know, if you were to think about like scoring guard, wing player, big, like, you know, who are some areas that what are some areas that you would maybe want to focus on if you were to project ahead of this team?
Yeah, I mean, I guess three things. It's like wings are always a premium. We've seen that with Wiggins. We know that with Kuminga. Moody, because of his size and his defensive capabilities, is a wing. And I think that's always going to be premium. But like I said earlier, they've invested in Wiseman, I believe in him, but we don't know what's going to happen to his knee. If it ends up being something where it's just like, wow, you missed another season. Let's have somebody else who can actually play minutes. But is that somebody that you can just, do they want to develop somebody, or do they just want to get a guy off the free agent market to play that role for this team with, you know, in tandem with Looney? And then it's also like, you know, is there a point guard, like a point guard with who's like 6'3", 6'4", who can play defense, who can initiate and create shots for other people and do a little bit of everything, you know? I mean, obviously last year's draft was so much deeper. And I feel like there could have been somebody if it was last year, but I just don't know about this year. So to me, it's like, there's no immediate need. All those things would be great to haves, but it's just a question of where you want to fill in those gaps. For me, I guess it would be more on the, maybe find like a point guard and a big, because I feel like even though wings are a premium, we have like a decent variety of wings.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I will throw out some names because in some of the areas that you talked about, and you know, these are partially names that are in the realm of these because I agree. I mean, I in terms of like, so bigs, it's just kind of like, yeah, do you want another big to just give you a little bit of Wiseman insurance, you know? But again, that seems unlikely in that bigs are relatively easy to, like, functional bigs are relatively easy to get. And also, if you're going to look at like a Damian Jones, like maybe they take too long to develop. Yeah, if you had gotten like Isaiah Hartenstein or Dwayne Dedman, like they would have given you 15 minutes a night or whatever, right?
And anybody you get at 28 who's a big is 100% a project, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but okay, just for the fun of it, let's go through the exercise. Is a name that I've seen in some places is Christian Koloko, who is a center from Arizona, who's, you're kind of like, maybe your high upside is a Clint Capella type, right? That's a comp that the Ringer has, and yeah, hey, that's useful, right? He's got like huge wingspan and can block some shots, has a little bit of athleticism, and yeah, you could see that. But I think that's probably the least likely place that they'll go. Okay, so if we're gonna kind of move down the line, a wing player. So
can I just say I looked
yeah,
Christian Koloko up on NBADraft.net. Do you know who his comp is?
what?
Festus Ezeli.
Oh, hey, also a late round pick, useful in the 2015 run, and good contributor on the Warriors post game show. He's got some got some good things to say.
Not the best defender of the 3-point line.
No, okay, let's not talk about that. Okay, so another name that is kind of in this kind of late round area, and an area of not so much need, but I don't know about you. There were times, or there has been times, where you're kind of like looking at Draymond, and look, we're not trying to do a Eric Pascal and say like, oh, they're the same height, he's the next Draymond, right? Like it's not that, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of the way the Warriors play, in terms of like smart player, can fit into the system, it's kind of like, when when Draymond would be out, and then they would put in JTA, and JTA would try to do Draymond stuff. It might be nice to have somebody who could be better than JTA, right? Or at least,
yeah,
and hey, I love JTA, so there's no slight to him, but could you get somebody who's better, right? And so one that has come up is a player named Jake LaRavia, who is kind of like a 3-4, but not like super athletic, but like super intelligent, moves with and without the ball, kind of like a good passer, and maybe an underrated defender who can shoot a little bit. So, and is in the kind of like 6'7", 6'8", is a 3-4, pretty young, so some room to grow still. From the look of your face, you don't seem too excited about that.
No, I mean, like I'm looking him up on NBADraft.net, and he's like in the 40s. But it made me think of, I've never seen this guy play. His picture just popped up. And another type of player that I would add in, I don't know if he's it, is like, obviously you're not going to get a Franz Wagner type at this late. But, when I talk about a point guard who could create and initiate, kind of like anybody who could create and initiate.
Yeah.
Wagner can do that. Of course, now it's what makes him special in Orlando. If there is somebody, it doesn't have to be 6'3", 6'4". He could be, 6'7", 6'8", just as another guy who can pass. And I mean, I guess to some extent that goes to your Draymond stuff, right? Like that he can do a little bit of creation and run the show on offense. And so you think this guy, he can do a little bit of that?
He seems like a Warriors type player in terms of like Warriors regular season player. I mean, I don't know what his defense up to playoff par, but we're not really thinking about that. Like, you're kind of getting these guys as depth guys, and maybe they become a Kevon Looney who can contribute in the playoffs. Maybe they become a Jordan Poole, but in some ways you're trying to get these guys to get you through the season too, right?
Exactly.
But to your point about you kind of like ball handling, like bigger, 6'7" kind of guy, like kind of offensive facilitator, or just trying to keep the offense moving. Somebody I've seen and kind of interested in is Dalen Terry. So he's like a guard wing from Arizona. Not very impressive like counting stats, but lots of good metrics. can initiate a little bit, secondary playmaker, like good defender, just like glue guy, right? And super young and room to grow. So, I think he's going to be gone by the time they get him. But, just having somebody who's maybe a little bit bigger, who can help Jordan Poole in that second unit, just be a bigger defender. Poole's definitely got to work on his defensive awareness, his strength, and just be better on defense. And I have no doubt that he will be, actually. But somebody to help in that, getting through those 82 games would be nice, I think. And maybe they develop into a kind of useful wing player.
Hockey fans, the pursuit of the Stanley Cup is on, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, has an unbelievable offer for the most exciting playoffs in sports. New customers can bet $5 on any team to win and get $100 in free bets no matter what, win or lose. Looking to turn a small bet into a big payday during the playoffs? With DraftKings same-game parlays, you can do just that. Create your own parlay by combining multiple bets like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more. It's your shot at an even bigger payout. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TBPN. Bet $5 on any NHL team to win and get $100 in free bets no matter what. That's code TBPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
And if you were to go with like a wild card, like swing for the fences, knowing that, okay, this guy's not going to play 2 or 3 years, you're kind of Anthony Simons kind of pick, right? But like super talented is Jaden Hardy. I needed to know if he was a Jalen or a Jaden. But he was on the G League Ignite. Is kind of a slightly smaller guard, but like one of these lead ball scorers, right? His prospects are kind of all over the board. Because people are not quite sure how to evaluate him. But he was one of the top recruits in all of basketball this last year. He went to the Ignite, played against, it's funny. They always like to say G League players like played against grown men. They always like to say that. So he played against grown men, had a better back half of the season, apparently. That's what I've heard. And so I don't know if that fits, but if you're thinking about somebody in 3 years, ready to contribute in 3 years, maybe that's a guy.
Off the top of my head, honestly, having seen none of these dudes play, I kind of like Dalen Terry. Is that how you say his name? Dalen?
Yeah.
I like that he's a 6'7" point guard. I mean, like that's just
like Sean Livingston vibes,
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Is he athletic or is he not that athletic? Because 6'7" point guard, shooting guard, like that's just nice to have. Whereas Hardy, 6'4". I mean, if Poole is part of our future, if Moody's part of our future too, then like I don't know if I want a 6'4". I mean, he could turn out to be awesome, but just looking at the numbers and just going off of this, something about Dalen Terry, I just kind of like.
That's definitely the player that I focused in on. I think he'll be gone. He seems to be rising because he does the things that are useful at that size, at that skill level. So it is crapshoot. I don't think Jaden Hardy seems to be a quote unquote Warriors type of player. So I think that's unlikely, but maybe they do want to take a home run swing. I guess none of these are really like floating your boat too much, eh?
Well, now like I'm imagining a 6'7" point guard, and I'm like, oh, let's use the pick on Terry.
Okay.
I don't want to trade out of this anymore. Like,
hey, that was the point of this whole exercise, is to get somebody that you're just like lusting over.
Like so, my Arizona point guards, man. Like if it ain't Nico Mannion, I'll take Dalen Terry.
There you go. Right. To answer your question, I don't think he's a super athlete, but he's definitely not. he's not like, but he is very athletic, you know. So I think he'll definitely be able to play on the wing and hopefully, contribute a little bit as a like a secondary ball handler, that kind of thing. So that's also my guy that I've kind of looked towards, and which means we won't get him.
Is he Moody athletic or better?
No, better.
Okay,
as far as I can tell.
I like that.
So I guess one of my sleepers is, or post-hype sleeper, Max Christie, who played at Michigan State, who is kind of like he might be Zaire-esque in terms of kind of a taller wing who can shoot, has good form. You know, didn't pop as much at Michigan State, but also showed a willingness to defend and that kind of thing. And so that would be your kind of like wingy player, and maybe you take a swing on that in the second round. And they do have 2 second-round picks in the 50s.
This Max Christie, his comps on NBADraft.net, Landry Shamet and Evan Fournier. Okay, you know, like I'll be honest, I would be really entertained with Draymond having a 19-year-old Michigan State guy on the team. I mean, like that would create some really funny comedy, offline, social media, behind the scenes type stuff. And
totally,
like he would just be so like rough with him. You know what I mean?
Totally. You know, they seem to like these Midwest dudes too. So again, just kind of like the original point was that, like, when you're picking at this stage, you got Jacob Ebbs on one hand, you got Jordan Poole on the other, Jordan Poole and Kevon Looney on the other. There's high variance. There's so many possibilities.
But regardless, with both, you have salary and luxury tax implications, right?
Yeah.
So
trade it away.
We'll see what happens, man. Are you going to watch the draft?
Oh, of course. Am I showing up for Christmas dinner? Come on, let's be real.
But I just have to say, like, it's good to be in this position again where, I'm not saying I take Warriors Christmas for granted, but like, it's good when it, like you said, it's not the most important holiday. There's other occasions to celebrate,
Let's just say you're a Warriors Scrooge. Warriors Christmas.
It feels different from last year, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%.
We were doing episodes like ramping up like a few weeks ahead of time. We talked about who we wanted. Then we did a mock draft, man. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
That was good. That was fun. That was fun. This year, like, I don't want to do a mock draft because then we'd have to go all the way to 28.
No, I don't know. Yeah. It's gonna be a long episode. The thing that kind of sucks is that the postseason comes so fast, right? And there are decisions that need to be made about Looney and GP2 and Otto Porter Jr. and Bielitsa. They need to make big decisions about that, and I think I would say I'm relatively confident Looney will come back. I don't know about GP2, so I mean, they may have some inclination or some intel about where those guys are at and how and what the number's going to be. So maybe that means you get a ball hawk who is like GP2, right? Like, or who you think by the end of the next season can get you 10 minutes a game defending, right? Defending the hell out of something. So I don't think that this draft is irrelevant, and I think it's going to signal some things about where they're at and what they're thinking, and just an overall will give you information about their strategy and how they're viewing the team building going forward. And then again, like, free agency comes so fast, and I guess it's beginning of July, and we'll find out who's going to be back.
Yeah, watching the end of the finals, I was like, wow, this is maybe Otto Porter Jr.'s last game, Andre's last game, maybe GP2, anyone who's not signed, right? I hope they can keep Looney and GP2. Those guys are really important, obviously. I mean, Otto Porter Jr. is important, but he's, to me, like kind of a second importance, second on the priority list, or second level. And Bielitsa, I mean, honestly, like, with his ups and downs, you could find somebody who does what he does better.
You think you can find somebody who stops Tatum that well. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's a Tatum stopper.
Yeah, and then Andre, like I said, I'll take Andre. Yeah, I'm more concerned with seeing what they do with the team that they have right now. And yeah, I mean, I will be very surprised if they take somebody. I mean, maybe they just don't get like a. I mean, there has to be a deal that'll satisfy them, right? Because everybody, like a lot of young teams, want a first round pick, regardless.
Yeah.
So
there might be some teams who don't have a first round pick, so maybe.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me yet again on another episode, and for another annual Warriors Christmas, man. Appreciate it.
Definitely. Third annual Warriors Christmas, right?
All right. Well, that is another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter at Patrick Lupino or at Oakland Warriors. Check us out at oaklandwarriors.com, and be sure to check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Oakland Warriors. Also check us out at oaklandwarriors.com, and be sure to tell your fellow Warrior fan friends to tune in and listen. The Oakland Warriors podcast is produced by National Film Society and is a part of the Basketball Podcast Network. And if you're so inclined, please do leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and or Spotify, and leave us a nice review on Apple Podcasts. That would be hugely helpful. Thanks for listening. That's it. Music in this episode provided by Paper Sun. Special thanks to Paul Amardo for production support. See you next time, and go Dubs.